This is from Justin to Kane, a podcast where Mike Robertson and Bob LaRue watch one critically acclaimed film and one terrible film and talk about how they are the same. You know what we should do, Mike, is it would be really fun if we did like one of the later Shreks.
For the good movie or the bad movie?
The bad film.
Shrek 4?
I think Shrek 4, yeah. Well, 3 is quite bad. Is that the one where he goes to university?
What? He doesn't go to university ever.
There's a Shrek where, like, they go to university. Somebody, not Shrek, but, like, somebody Shrek knows goes to university. I remember a scene because there's, like, a stagecoach, but it's shaped like a VW panel van, or, like, hippie van. Uh-huh. And then it's, like, shaking, and a guy gets out of it, and he's smoking weed, and he's, like, the weed guy. You know, like the Sean Penn character
Did
from
you dream this
Fast Times
movie?
at Ridgemont High. Maybe I did. Maybe it's not a real film and I had a fever dream.
Is it Monsters University you're thinking of?
No. It is Shrek. They go to an island or something.
You might think that Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. is just like a small Shrek.
One of Shrek's eyes just popped out and became anthropomorphic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shit.
I don't know of a Shrek movie where they go to an island and Shrek goes to university.
Oh, I gotta look it up now. This is killing me. It is a Shrek 5?
Is it Shrek the College Years?
Oh no, Shrek 5 is coming out in 2022. Shrek.
The year can't get here fast enough.
Shrek
just in time for the pandemic to be over.
So the plot. Fuck, man, I shouldn't read this right now because we're recording. But anyways, I know this Shrek movie exists and we should do it because it's not very good.
Okay.
That's how I feel. Whatever. I'm excited for Shrek 5.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. Okay, start us off, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to From Justin to Kane. I'm Mike.
And I'm Bob.
And we have a new episode right now. You're listening to it as I speak. So what are the movies this week, Bob?
All right, so we have 2010's Sex and the City 2, also known as Deucey-Sex in the City, and 1924's Sherlock Jr., starring none other than Buster Keaton.
Starring Buster Keaton, yes. Also directed by him.
Yeah.
And probably produced by him, probably. Written by him.
Definitely not written.
No?
No, but produced, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
Although I'm sure the stunts were his idea, but the plot was somebody else. I'm pretty sure how they wrote it would be there'd be a general plot, and then they would go to him and say, "And what kind of crazy shit can you do in between plot points?" And he'd be like, "Well, I'll ride a motorcycle as if I was sitting in a basket on the front, like E.T., and then I'll get fucked up by a train, and then just do some crazy shit."
Yeah, both of these are wild movies in their own ways.
They are, and they're polarizing in terms of length.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
One's a crisp 44 minutes, and the other one is 2 hours and 17 minutes or something.
I thought it was 2 hours and 34 minutes.
Oh, it is 2 hours and 34 minutes. You're right.
Yeah, because I watched an hour of it, and then I checked the time on, I pressed pause to see how long I had gone, and there was a full 90-minute film left. And nothing
Sherlock
had happened
Jr.
in the
could
first
fit
hour also.
Like 4 times in there, couldn't it?
Yeah. I guess that's the math, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, it was horrific. I was extremely hungover and had to watch it. And it felt like forever.
And I started it late, and so I was watching it until the witching hour, essentially.
Really? What is that, 3 in the morning?
No, it wasn't that late, but
okay,
essentially.
Okay. Essentially.
Not literally, but essentially.
What was it worse or not as bad as you thought it was going to be?
I've seen both of these movies before, more than once.
What?
Yeah.
Why would you watch Sex and the City too? You're not a rom-com guy.
Morbid curiosity. It's not a rom-com.
Yes, it is.
No, there's few jokes in it. I mean, there's a lot of jokes, but there's no
It
laughs.
is labeled as a rom-com, though.
Yeah, there's no laughs, though.
No. The bits that they tried to do just came across as offensive or so profoundly unfunny.
Well,
And very conversationally, like, it was too casual of a movie.
there's no comedic set pieces in the film. It's just them going from location to location, wearing different clothes, and then saying puns based on the Middle East, essentially.
You didn't think it was super funny when she forgets her passport at the shoe booth? Because that was on paper a joke, I would imagine.
Also, it wasn't a rom-com with the rom. It wasn't a rom because everybody hates their husband or their married life, and the one moment of flirtation is kind of seen as scandalous.
Yeah, I loved that. The whole time I was watching, I'm like, I feel like a single kiss, just like for a lot of folks these days, would not really be that upsetting.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? It was over. It was a bit too much.
Well, it's interesting because it's interesting because Sex and the City, I think, is seen as this somewhat empowering television show.
Yeah,
because of the sexual freedom it promoted.
Yeah, but
yet it seems like all of these characters really want is just to be trapped in the prison of monogamy.
Yes. Yeah, it's. I haven't seen Sex and the City 1, but I've watched the majority of the TV show, and the films feel like a disservice to the series.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they contradict the central purpose of the show and the book, the original book.
Yeah. So, how much of the TV show have you seen?
I've seen 3 seasons.
What?
Yeah. I like watching it. It's like nice before bed. You just watch 4 white ladies trying to find love in New York. It's great, and it's in the 90s. So like I'm really into early HBO because all of these shows like The Sopranos, The Wire, Sex and the City, how they talk about technology is so funny.
What do you mean?
There's an episode in The Wire where they're using typewriters, and they're like, "What's a computer?" Like, I don't know how to use that. They're not paying me enough to use a computer.
Yeah, and
this guy's using a typewriter in whiteout to make like a police report. And then in The Sopranos, like early on, they're like, you know what's really cool? DVDs.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, like it's like really like it slaps you across the face and really makes the shows not age supremely well. And I would say Sex and the City is guilty of that for, like, you see, they all have voice machines or whatever, like voicemail machines.
Yeah.
But they also have cell phones. So it's like this strange transition.
Yeah, well, even in the Sex and the City 2 movie, when Mr. Big gets Carrie her wedding gift or birthday gift or whatever the heck that is, anniversary gift.
Yeah.
He calls it a state-of-the-art flat screen, which is
I know
what you say when you don't understand technology.
Oh God, I love it.
So as someone who likes so you haven't seen the first Sex and the City movie?
No, I haven't. Is it good?
I don't know. I've never seen it.
Why would you watch just the second one and not the first one?
Because it's famously insane.
Okay, fair. That's a fair point.
That's why we watch it. That's why we watch Sex and the City.
I watched it because I was told it's a rom-com.
I mean, I guess it
Wikipedia calls it a rom-com.
Loosely a rom-com for sure, but
you know what? Let me interrupt. First similarity, I would say both these films are sort of genre bending.
Okay, sure. Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
because it's a rom-com, but it actually isn't a rom-com. It's not funny and it's not that romantic. No. And Sherlock Jr., you would think it's like a mystery film, but it's not. It's like a stunt action movie and a comedy. It's more akin to like Rush Hour than it is to like Sherlock or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
First similarity. Boom. Anyways, as somebody who watches the show, what?
Oh, as someone who watches the show and likes the show, how kind of startling was the jump forward in the characters' lives and in the tonal representation of just these characters?
I would say it has sullied my perception of the show.
Yeah.
Like seeing, because they, like, some of the characters that they're married to show up in the show, and you're like, oh, I wonder if they'll actually end up together. And so it gave away a lot of the arching sort of narrative of the whole series.
Well, I'm sorry
But
for
also-
spoiling that by choosing this movie.
That's okay. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to finish Sex in the City anytime soon, so it was bound to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, the movie makes me not want to finish the TV show because it's like the movie has sort of ruined everything that came before it.
Kind of, yeah.
That's how I feel about it. And it's sort of odd to see these ladies so much later and they're still like pretty vapid and self-centered, and it's like, wow, like emotionally they haven't really grown very much.
No, they're kind of immature.
Yeah, and they're very entitled, and they represent like a part of American society that you maybe don't want to dedicate your whole screen time to.
Yeah.
Like Sex in the City 3 will never come out.
Well, they're making a Sex in the City something or other. I think they're either
What?
making
A
another
movie?
season. They're either making another season, or it's a limited series, or maybe it's another movie. But I don't think it's a movie.
I hope the next thing that comes out, they all vape. They just all have vape pens in their bags.
I did do a little bit of research. Cannot confirm if this is 100% confirmed.
Oh, juicy.
Because this wasn't on like a Entertainment Weekly kind of website. It was on just something a website I never some website I didn't recognize. But supposedly, the third iteration, whatever that is, of Sex in the City post movie features the three women, Samantha.
Samantha, yes.
So she's not in it anymore because Kim Cattral didn't want to be a part of it.
Really?
So they were supposedly replacing her with a non-binary character who is a podcast. This must have been. I must have just read some comedy. Actually, this must have been satire.
This sounds like satire.
Yeah,
It's
just
like,
make sure of that.
I will say, if this is true, Mike, it is funny. You see like a show.
No, it's true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Vice magazine reports on it. The New Zealand Herald, independent.co. Yeah. Okay. So for some reason,
it's legit.
They've cast a person named Sarah Ramirez, with a non-binary bisexual character who is a podcaster who becomes obsessed with Carrie, and then enters the friend group that way. Not sure if that's going to be. Yeah, it says in the headline that this character is replacing Samantha.
It's funny. Some franchises just shouldn't continue, and then to see them pivot, abruptly into trying to like, work with a younger audience and sort of maybe make up for lost time in terms of some of the harmful stuff that they've depicted throughout the show.
Yeah,
as like a heteronormative sort of bizarro, affluent, not totally woke, harmful show, especially the movies.
Yeah.
Because the show was in the 90s, and you can kind of be like, well, it's the 90s, so shit was a little dicier then, and you could say some stuff. But like 2010, 2008, when did the first movie come out?
I think the first movie came out 2007.
Oh, okay. And then 2010, and you're like, and then you see just this franchise like dying, but then they are trying to keep it going, and then they abruptly try to modernize it. Just feels like a waste of time. Like, just call it quits.
Well, also
on
to
the
go
franchise.
to narratively go from they go to Abu Dhabi and say incredibly like culturally insensitive and racist stuff, and also just celebrate this culture of opulence post recession, or maybe even in the midst of the recession, I guess, is when it was made.
It was like escapism, right? That's what they were striving for.
Yeah. So this kind of like really terrible misjudgment, and then for that to be, canon, and then the next thing that they do is this like pivot where they try and appeal to younger people, even though 3 out of the 4 characters are senior citizens at this point, So you've got these 3 aging socialites and this one young person who's clearly just there to pander.
Yes.
It'll be interesting, I guess. And also, Kim Cattral is like, she's such an important part.
Yes, she is.
She's
it won't be the same, that's for sure.
Because like she taught everybody a lesson in the TV show. just because she was so liberated and everybody else was just a little bit more stuffy.
Mm-hmm.
She was the one who kind of like made those three women like learn a thing or two about themselves. And then in Sex and the City too, she's just a cartoon character.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
Ugh. I'm going to watch the new film. Just like I'm going to watch Shrek 5.
Shrek goes to college? This movie you made up in your brain?
Shrek 420.
Did you dream of this last night? Did you have like some sort of fugue state?
That's not impossible. Yeah, it could have happened.
What if Shrek was at university, just drunkenly just shouting at the mirror? And then
I wasn't drunk last night, but the night before I was, and I woke up feeling not great and had to watch both these movies back to back.
Nice.
It was rough. It was a rough go, but Sherlock Jr. was a pleasant surprise.
Oh, truly pleasant. It's great.
I had never seen it before, and it was such a fun little bop. Second similarity, both films have a weak start.
Oh, yes. And, also a tonally different start from the second half.
Yes.
Like they basically, I would actually even say it's like a movie within a movie.
They both are.
Because literally in Sherlock Jr., he enters a film and then after 20 minutes, he enters a film and then he is in this movie.
Yeah.
Throughout the film, and he's playing an alternate version of himself, a persona, an on-screen persona. And then in Sex and the City, it's like a regular movie where you just get to see them in their real life in New York. And then Samantha gets invited to Abu Dhabi, and then they go there, and it's like a completely different film to the point where I was like, this must be some sort of like dream sequence or something like that.
Well, you could look at it two ways. So either the characters in Sex and the City aren't themselves in New York and became themselves in Abu Dhabi, or vice versa. So it's either like marriage and motherhood is who they are, or it isn't who they are, but it's what they've had to become, and they want to be the free-spirited, young socialite ladies of the late 90s, pre Y2K, dare I say. And either way, it kind of works. The film could have been interesting, like if they had done everything differently, but they explored the theme of like, I wish we were the 90s girls again or something.
Yeah.
And like that was the narrative impetus. And maybe that's what they were going for, but it just didn't work. So I think both have main characters that pretend to be what they're not.
My hot take is,
give it to me, Mike.
Well, they're very.
How hot is this take?
Well, they're both very similar because in Sherlock Jr. he enters the screen.
Yeah,
he enters the movie screen, and then a new movie starts where we see Buster Keaton as Sherlock, and he's basically just living his dream, and it is literally revealed to be a dream at the end. Spoiler alert.
Wait, what? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and then in Sex and the City, my like conspiracy theory version of the film, my fan theory, as I guess it's called.
Yeah.
Mr. Big buys a television, sets it up in the bedroom, and that is like Carrie sees that as the death knell of their relationship.
Yes.
So, but as you noticed, one of the scenes, Carrie falls asleep with the television on.
Yes.
So my fan theory is that it's very similar to Sherlock Jr., and I'm only saying this because we watched both of these movies this week. But they fall asleep with the TV on, and then she dreams the second half of the film because they come back to New York and they've all learned lessons and stuff. So
I believe it.
Or it could be that she goes to her other apartment and then like passes out or gets like super drunk and like knocks herself out and then dreams this like, because she's escaping the drab like real life she's living with her husband. Like she's escaping the monotony of monogamy, as it were. And and also the recession. So there's like a lot of depressing things in real life, and the Sex and the City life is no longer what it used to be. So that's why they go to Abu Dhabi, and then that's also why they can get away with just all of the crazy stuff that they do when they're there.
Because none of it's real.
There's
I think that's great, Mike. That's a really good observation. So you could say that they have identical narrative arcs.
I would definitely say
in a
that,
way.
yeah.
But what's also interesting is both films, it wouldn't be unlikely for, Mr. Big buys a TV and he's like, oh my God, I love this film. It's Sherlock Jr. starring Buster Keaton.
That would
Like
be
they
amazing.
could have, and maybe like how films don't show the characters pooping, but they have to poop within the arc. They also watched way more TV that was never on camera. So
That is
maybe they
true.
did watch Sherlock Jr. So in a way, Sherlock Jr. is in the DNA of Sex in the City.
Exactly.
Deucey-Sex in the City.
Deucey-Sex.
Deucey-Sex. Well, it's called it's SATC2 is like what people write it in the reviews because it's too long.
Yeah.
So you could say Deucey-Satk.
Deucey-Satk. Yeah, that really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, great, Bob, you idiot.
Sex in the City 2, more like Sex in the Shitty Poo.
Where did they poo?
Yeah, where did they poo?
Anyways, both films are black and white. That's my similarity.
They pooed in golden turlets for sure because they were in like this $22,000 a night
Golden
hotel.
phantasmagorical toilets.
For sure, yeah.
I was in a hotel in Dubai, and it wasn't 22,000, but it was $2,250 a night.
Oh my God! So you've been to Dubai?
No, I've been to Dubai.
Why?
Yeah. I had a girlfriend staying there at the time, and she was doing an internship, and her dad is rich, and I was coming home from Vietnam, and I was like, ooh, if I fly the long way, I can do a pit stop in Dubai. So I spent like a week and a half or 2 weeks in Dubai, freeloading off of this rich dad. It was extraordinary. Weird, but extraordinary.
Cool.
Yeah, we like did the sand dune thing, like went off-roading, went to the top of the Burj Khalifa and had a latte.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay for anything. And we went to Atlantis, which is this really amazing water park.
Yeah.
It's at the top of the Palm, the man-made like extension of land. And I got to swim with there's a water slide with a tube that goes underwater and you're floating slowly, and there's sharks and stingrays that just swim by you.
Cool.
It's excessive. Really, really excessive. But yeah, I've been to Dubai and it was awesome.
It's wild to not only have a city that big, but also a city that excessive in the desert.
Yeah.
Just
yeah.
like-
Well, the United Arab Emirates are really interesting because it's just like 4 cities.
Yeah.
And they're all opulent. Like Dubai, like literally in the from 1999 to now, you've seen this exponential growth.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was built out of nothing because of oil money.
Yeah, of course.
It's crazy. It's really, really crazy.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Maybe you and I, once we start getting sponsored, we can do an episode in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah. What are the 4 cities of the UAE?
I can't remember. It's Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and there's like 2 or 3 more. I can't remember what they're called. They're significantly less famous.
Okay.
But Abu Dhabi and Dubai apparently are like competing for the tallest building in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the Burj Khalifa was built, but there's a building being built in Abu Dhabi, or has been built, and is taller.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dubai is planning on another building.
Well, let's maybe do a little bit of background on these films.
Sure. But anyways, I just want to say back to the original point. Both films, whether it be for the entire film or a portion of the film, are in black and white.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, super cool, Bob.
Very
nice,
cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about Sex in the City
Sex
too.
and the City. Yeah, let's dare I say, get into it?
We're coming up on the 11th anniversary of Sex in the City 2, actually, because it was released May 27th, 2010, which is this week.
Why didn't we do this a year ago?
Because we had a backlog of episodes.
Oh yeah, right. That's when this was such a cushy gig, you know?
Yeah.
We used up that backlog real quick.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
So it was released 11 years ago this week.
Yeah.
On May 27th. And it was just panned by critics, like universally panned, eviscerated by critics, but it was a huge success. It grossed $294 million on a $95 million production budget.
Which is like impressive. Like, yeah. And that's in 2010 dollars.
That's 2010 dollars, and that is post-recession. So people who lost everything are going to watch this as escapism.
For $15.
Or directed by Michael Patrick King, who also worked on the show, like as a writer, creator, director, blah, blah, blah. So, and it got the original cast together. So one might wonder, why did they go to Abu Dhabi? And
yeah, why did they?
the reason was because Michael Patrick King says when they were promoting the original film, they went to some like foreign locations because they were promoting all around the world. And so he wanted to write something like kind of like the escapist, extravagant adventure films of the 30s. So kind of like the silent era.
Yeah. Well, just on the because the recession was what?
2008, late 2008.
Well, no. I just mean it's interesting. Like our film came out just on the precipice of the Great Recession, which was 1928 to 1939.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So both these films have a very close proximity. I'm just trying to slap down similarities as we go along.
No, that's good. That is good. And I didn't put that connection
both
together.
films either have a connection or are on the brink of a massive, specifically U.S. recession.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're both recession brink films.
And I would say like Buster Keaton's career post 1929 really plummeted.
Mm-hmm.
And but that might be partially due to the Great Recession, as well as sound coming.
It's definitely mostly sound.
Well, there was a recession in silence.
Well, nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Well,
boom.
yeah. But yeah, Buster Keaton famously kind of like poo-pooed sound.
Yes, he did. And his career took a big shot.
Meanwhile, Charlie Chaplin, his rival and friend, embraced it. And like some of his best movies are of his sound era. So
yes, and he also used sound in a really creative way.
Yeah,
with like some of his later films, without having heavy dialogue, but he's using sound, and he was able to create new bits.
Did you ever see Limelight?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, Buster Keaton makes a cameo in that and speaks.
That's right. But they did it like Darth Vader because his voice is too gross. They had to do VO. They got like some burly man to do his voice. That's a joke. That's not true. Anyways. But also Buster Keaton, I know you're talking about your movie, but he had a real bizarro... Wow, Bob.
Wow, just like really running with this, just ruining this podcast. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to destroy this podcast slowly but surely. Buster Keaton had a really interesting sort of twilight in the 60s with beach films, like Roger Corman beach films.
Yeah, right.
Where he would be terrible in them, like just like audibly and visibly phone it in.
Yeah,
and it was obvious like he didn't have a pension or something and just needed cash. And they would be like, and with special appearance, Buster Keaton, and he'd be this weird old guy dressed bizarrely who was just upset at the young kids on the beach.
Yeah,
and then he would do a couple bits like falling, but he's older, so it was less funny. Just kind of interesting. He had a real sad sort of end to his career.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Yeah, it's wild when these people who you just think of as these timeless geniuses have just these sad, depressing ends.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way,
a lot of people...
in a way, the titular Citizen Kane, Orson Welles,
the same.
Didn't necessarily have like a sad ending, but it was it was never the same after the 40s.
Well, here's another similarity. Could I say the main four ladies on Sex and the City never had remarkable careers post Sex and the City? And they've been clinging to one franchise or one version of themselves for the remainder of their career.
Well, I mean, Cynthia Nixon became a politician. So she's kind of legitimized herself. Yeah, she's running for governor of New York.
I didn't know that.
But yeah. But yeah, you're right. They did kind of like not really have a great career afterwards. In fact, I'd also say another similarity is that they both kind of were only good in their original era. So Sex and the City was only good in the TV era.
In the 90s.
In the 90s. Once it escaped its original decade and kind of medium, it just wasn't the same. So yeah,
absolutely.
Once sound came in, Buster Keaton just couldn't survive.
Yeah.
Although there is a National Film Board movie called The Railrodder that he's in. It is a movie where he talks and he basically just uses one of those pump trolleys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's when he's older, and it's supposed to be really good.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a Canadian film.
Oh, shout out to Canada. Am I right?
So anyway, back to Sex and the City 2 facts.
Yeah.
So yeah, Michael Patrick King was inspired by the recession, which is an insane sentence, I guess, to do something extravagant and escapist. Which I mean, I can see the appeal of something like that. But also, these guys, everybody involved in this was already like super rich, so they didn't need something extravagant and expensive.
So here's the next thing. Both films are escapist films. Nobody's doing the crazy stunts that Buster Keaton does, but they want to see him do it and feel the excitement of that, but which is more exciting than their normal life. And Sex and the City, you want to watch some rich ladies be treated like rich ladies in Abu Dhabi.
I do, yeah.
Anyways, continue.
They chose Abu Dhabi of all places because of the high fashion culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the UAE wasn't really affected by the recession in the same way that the United States was. Mainly because the United States caused the recession. So with their wild banking practices. So
yes.
Anyway, so they had to postpone filming for the movie because so they could not get clearance to actually film. They were rejected to actually film there in Abu Dhabi, so they filmed it in Morocco.
Classic. That's where everything shoots.
Everything shoots in Morocco. I just watched Ishtar this week. Also takes place in Morocco. And also famously bad and terribly culturally insensitive. So
should we do it for the podcast?
We probably should. Not so close to this one. There can't be too many Morocco episodes, but
that's true.
Back to back. But so yeah, pretty wild. They couldn't even film in the city that they were talking about constantly and like weirdly kind of promoting.
Yeah, it felt like a really poorly executed tourism ad for Abu Dhabi. Like
it seemed like a commercial.
Yeah. Well, this is, I will say this is sort of when Hollywood went extra corporate. You know what I mean? Like when, like Coca-Cola is buying studios and stuff, and then you start to see these films be infused with products.
Right.
And places.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting.
So, they were supposed to shoot in Morocco for just 13 days originally to get some specific kind of shots, like probably the desert stuff. But so they had to shoot in Morocco for 6 weeks now instead of 13 days.
Holy
so they
moly.
tripled the amount of time that they were shooting there.
Well, that makes sense. That's not a lot of time they allocated the first time, is it?
No. Well, I mean, it probably was for what they were going to get, but then they got rejected by Abu Dhabi. So they were like, okay, I guess we'll shoot the whole thing in Morocco now.
Do you know, the film feels like there was no screenplay. Was there a finished screenplay?
Yes, I bet there was, yeah.
Because it's so meandering. Like, it feels like they wrote it every night after they wrapped.
It definitely feels like it was a first draft. Yeah, because the first chunk of the movie where you see them actually having real conflicts is somewhat interesting and seems like basically you're watching maybe 2 or 3 episodes of the show strung together.
Yeah.
And then once they go to Abu Dhabi, then it was just like, oh, this is just kind of all over the place. Like nothing is happening. And it's just puns. That's all their jokes are. It's just puns.
Which they're not famous for.
Like they say Lawrence of my labia, and they say Abu Dhabi do.
Which is not a pun.
I mean, yeah, they're not really puns, I guess. They're like barely puns.
Yeah, it's weak. Yeah,
and I was like, I don't remember the show. With the comedy of the show, just basically characters saying like smirking at the camera
quips.
And saying quips.
Yeah, it's not. The comedy is all character based. It's like, look how fucked up these women are. Like they're narcissists and they're this and that, and like look at this horrific decision they just made and the fallout. And like that's why it was compelling. Yeah,
it sounds like it's like Curb Your Enthusiasm for women in a way.
It is.
Yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes, the Rotten Tomatoes score for the film is 16%. Pretty low.
Whoa.
The first one got 49%, which is still bad, but not as bad as this one. This one is famously panned and criticized wildly and deservedly for how it portrays the Middle East. Here's a couple of quotes. The Hollywood Reporter said it was blatantly anti-Muslim. The Guardian said it was borderline racist. the London Evening Standard said, could be the most stupid, most racist, and polluting and women-hating film of the year. So,
preach.
And Lindy West, formerly of Jezebel and the inspiration for the show Shrek, reviewed the film.
I thought you were going to say Shrek.
I wish. That's what we need. We need a feminist Shrek.
Yes.
So anyway, Lindy West.
Sorry I interrupted you.
Lindy West reviews the film and says, Sex and the City takes everything that I hold dear as a woman and as a human, that is, working hard, contributing to society, not being an entitled C word like it's my job, and rapes it to death with a stiletto that costs more than my car. It is 146 minutes long, which means that I entered the theater in the bloom of my youth and emerged with a family of field mice living in my long white mustache.
I read that quote and I was like, that is such a visceral, well put review of the theater going experience. Like truly, you die and go to hell and then somehow reemerge on this planet by the time the film ends.
Yeah, it is wild. A couple more things. Was nominated for the Golden Raspberries, including Worst Picture, and it won 3 awards. Including like a worst cast, I guess, for the 4 main women. Mm-hmm. So, congrats to them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Nice.
That's great. Nice. Just for all the rom-com lovers out there, though, I just want to do a brief little history on Sarah Jessica Parker's dating life, because she's now married to Matthew Broderick, which is super cool.
Very
nice power couple. But she did briefly date Robert Downey Jr. in the late 80s, early 90s, as well as John F. Kennedy Jr.
Right. Wow.
So, like, she's had a nice, like, cool love life. Very exciting, you know?
And she's also coming back in Hocus Pocus, too.
Is she?
Yeah, they're making a second movie of that for some reason.
Oh, nice. Good for her.
I don't understand this desire to go back to things that were popular in the 90s and 2000s. Like, nobody wants to
think... Because you don't have any ideas.
No, I know that's why. I know they don't have any ideas.
It's guaranteed income, right? Like, the movie was made for $95 million and made almost $300 million, which is pretty friggin' good.
But why do people want to see things that they loved in their youth, but with senior citizens in it now?
Because it similarly, the intention behind wanting to make the thing is the same as wanting to see it. It brings you back to what you think was the best part of your life, which is your youth.
Yeah.
A lot of people, as they age, they feel as though that a previous version of themselves was actually the best time. And so everyone's looking back instead of looking forward. And these films just kind of fuel that, I think. And like using these old franchises, especially TV shows from the 90s, being like, look, we're still at it. And we're going to remind you how awesome you used to be. But in actuality, it's just a sad, weird, clinging to youth sort of movement that it's not prosperous for good filmmaking.
Well, also, there's a scene in the Sex and the City 2, almost halfway through the film, like almost at the midpoint, which, is sometimes the point in the film where you kind of spell out the themes of the film or really talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
Or reflect on the characters' journeys.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a scene halfway through the film where they've been in Abu Dhabi just dicking around for a while. And then Carrie reads a review of her book. Yeah. In the New Yorker, a magazine she famously loved. And so she reads a review of her book and it like rips her book apart. Miranda turns to Carrie and says, "They don't get it. It's satire." And that like flipped a switch in my head. And I was like, is this movie like satirizing itself? Like, is it doing all these things to make fun of like these people, Because I think you were supposed to relate to them in the 90s and on the TV show, but I think they're so far gone from who they were on the TV show. Because I've seen the first season of the show.
Yeah.
And they're just rich white women in a $22,000 hotel, but they're monologizing about being oppressed And then like in the next sentence, they talk about clothing and spa dates. So it's like they're so detached from reality.
Mm-hmm.
Not seen specifically, but then just in the movie as a whole, that I was like, this movie must be smarter than I'm giving it credit for, and is like kind of making fun of itself. And you're not supposed to like these characters anymore.
Yeah,
it's like a cautionary tale for the people who used to think I'm a Carrie, I'm a Samantha. This is a cautionary tale. Like, you don't want to become these people.
No, it would be genius if that's what the intention had been, but it's not. So there's no way, what's his face, the director was like, I'm going to make a satire of this entire franchise and no one will be aware of it except for me in the making of this film. No, that's not what happened. So, although, can something become satire just by virtue of it existing and the context in which it exists? And like the intention was one thing, but it just is ostensibly a satirical whatever without the artist ever intending it to be.
I think that the word that you said, intention, is central to satire. I think you have to have intent in order for it to be satirical.
Yeah.
It can't be accidentally satirical. I mean, it often is.
Well, Sex and the City 2 is accidentally satirical, maybe.
Yeah, I think it is, but I don't think it was intended to be that.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Yeah, and also another similarity, like these characters are all divorced from reality, as I said. And I would say also the characters in Sherlock Jr. are, at least Sherlock Jr. himself. Buster Keaton's character, he's very divorced from reality. Like he's living in a dream world.
Yeah. Well, another similarity is both films have literally nothing happens, as in Buster Keaton's character dreams all this shit. None of it actually happens. He wakes up and the daughter apologizes.
Yeah.
And in Sex and the City, we watch for 2 hours and 37 minutes as nothing happens. A lot of conversations about how marriage is, in quotes, hard.
Yeah.
But nothing happens. They just sit and eat and drink and they get into taxis and they go shopping, but they don't actually do anything or grow. And then at the end, you're given this false sense of like, did we learn something?
Well, they tell you that they learn things, but
how did they learn it? Because they didn't do anything.
No, they just went to Abu Dhabi, sat around a table and ignored their family and their kids.
And then
they came back and they had to like somehow learned a lesson about all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ugh. So both films have nothing happen, and then at the end it's just all okay.
Well, I think they both play into some idea about like what movies do. I think there's like meta commentary on some level about films, in that it's very, very clear in Sherlock Jr. because at the very end he's like looking to the movie for cues on how to act, right?
Yeah.
He's like looking at the screen and the person on screen is like turning the woman and then kissing her on the hand and stuff. And then so he just does what he sees on screen. So like there's this kind of like meta commentary about just how our lives are affected by cinema in a way, or how our lives are reflected in and by cinema. Similarly in Sex and the City, at the end of the movie, there's like a bunch of lessons learned, but it was never clear when those lessons were learned. It's just like we know that we have to go through these motions regardless of whether they have any meaning.
Yeah.
And I think on some level, Sex and the City 2 is commenting on that, even if it doesn't know that. And it definitely doesn't know that.
That's interesting. That's interesting, Mike. Yeah.
I mean, that's just like a fan theory once again, but
yeah. Well, make sure you're writing all this down so you can put it into your phantasmagorical companion book.
Well, also
for Sat could too.
Yes, for Deucey-Sex. But also another similarity: both films should be 45 minutes long.
Yes.
So that is a similarity. One of them actually is, and Buster Keaton like had it. I think they edited it down to a tight 4 or 5 reeler, I think is what they say.
Right. Yeah, because each reel is 11 minutes.
He kept editing it down because it wasn't getting the laughs he wanted. So he just kept making it shorter, and then they were like, 45 minutes, that's a bit short, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it works.
Well, it's the perfect runtime. Like, it was exactly what I wanted, especially having watched it after Deucey-Sex.
Yeah.
So that was nice. I have to say that was a really nice runtime. that's a good similarity.
I was inspired after having that similarity when I came up with it this morning. There's like, oh, somebody, maybe me, should re-edit Sex and the City 2 to like a tight,
44 minutes,
45 minutes. Not necessarily because of Sherlock Jr., but just because, just cut out all the Abu Dhabi stuff and then still keep the Aiden subplot, but basically just make it very unclear where they are in some of those scenes. So you think that they're still in New York. So basically they just never leave the New York because it's called Sex in the City. It's not called Sex and they go to some other city.
Sex and the desert.
Like, it's weird for them to be like, say, oh, you know what? New York is the fifth character. New York is the fifth lady, right? And then in Sex and the City 2, and I think in the first one they go to Mexico.
Oh, do they?
I think so.
It's for a wedding, right?
Yeah. So it is kind of strange for them to like leave one of the central characters behind.
Right.
Especially when that character is going through hard times, i.e. the recession. So they just abandon her.
The hardest time. Yeah. Really just dropping your friend.
Yeah. Just leaving your friend behind. And, but I guess it's also on brand because in the next series, they're going to like just leave Kim Cattral. So these ladies do not like really care about each other is what we're learning. They just leave their friend New York behind, and then they drop Samantha next in favor of a teen podcaster, I'm to assume. So
oh man, I'm gonna watch it. It sounds horrific.
We'll probably watch it over here too.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll do an episode on it when we can. It'll either be the good film or the terrible film.
It'll be the terrible film.
Okay, Sherlock Jr. is a 1924 silent comedy starring and directed by Buster Keaton. In 1991, the film was selected for the preservation by the National Film Registry. It was originally called The Misfit, which is interesting because that name doesn't really make any sense, but it's good they changed it to Sherlock Jr. And in 2005, Sherlock Jr. was named as one of the all-time 100 movies by Time magazine. So I'd say this isn't a similarity, but both these films have a different sort of effect on long-term viewing. So one of them is aged exceptionally well, and the other one hasn't.
No.
But I got some fun stuff about production because it's pretty crazy. So
well, they're both on like blank of lists, probably like 100 blank of lists. So it's probably, I think Sex and the City 2 has got to be on the worst movies of all time list.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I got a bunch of juicy stuff. I guess I have to say there's a trigger warning because part of the behind the scenes of this film is very interesting. There's a guy named Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. Okay, fuck it. I'll just read it and then we can figure out how to address this. But Keaton initially hired Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle as his co-director for the film. He had discovered that Arbuckle was at a standstill in his career because he had been accused of raping Virginia Rapp in 1921, who's an actor. And during the scandal and court case, Arbuckle had lost his mansion and cars and was in debt for $750,000 in 1922 or 23 money. So that's a ton of cash. So Keaton wanted to help him out because they were old friends and they had worked together before. So he hired him under the pseudonym William Goodrich. And so it's believed that the idea for the film was a tribute to Oscar Heinrich, the forensic scientist involved in the trial against Arbuckle, which is kind of nuts. That's a weird way to like find the genesis of a film, but whatever. Filming began, and Arbuckle was happy to be on set, but apparently there was like an incident on set and Keaton corrected something that Arbuckle had done, and Arbuckle became like irate and crazy and super angry and like was yelling at everybody and became really abusive to the actors and to the crew. And so Keaton had to like basically fire him by putting him on another film as a director called The Red Mill.
So yeah.
And there's also a claim that so Doris Dean was Arbuckle's second wife, and in her biography she stated that Arbuckle had actually directed and conceived of everything in the film, and that Buster Keaton didn't. So there's like some controversy as to like who was actually the creative sort of person in charge of the film.
I would assume that that's not true.
I don't think so. Arbuckle just sounds like a piece of shit who was freeloading off Buster Keaton, to be honest. That's kind of what I gleaned from this whole
and also it
narrative.
sounds like he was effectively canceled.
He was, yeah. And I think the industry basically just shut him out. And it's also kind of dicey that Buster Keaton was like, "I got you, buddy. Like, I'm gonna take care of you."
It's not a good look.
Yeah, it's concerning. It's concerning for sure. It's like, I'll throw this guy a bone. He's a criminal, but whatever.
Yeah.
But so this film includes one of the most famous accidents that Buster Keaton ever had in his career. It's the scene where he grabs the water spout while walking on the moving boxcar train.
Yeah.
And the water floods out unexpectedly, and it hit him, throwing him to the ground. Apparently, he like slammed his neck on the steel rail and caused him to black out, and he had to take the rest of the day off. And then he had blinding headaches for the rest of the production. And then years later, in 1935, a doctor spotted a callus over a fracture in his top vertebrae after getting an x-ray, and the doctor informed Keaton that he had broken his neck during the accident 9 years earlier.
That's
so
wild.
he made the film with a broken neck, which is crazy.
That's the similarity to Sex and the City. They all broke their necks.
Yeah, you know what they did? They hung themselves on this terrible franchise and this terrible concept.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, but that's crazy. And then and he always performed his own stunts. And another crazy thing is, the motorcycle stuff, most of it was real.
Yeah.
And he crashed into 2 cameras and knocked over the camera guy and then hit a car.
Yeah, I can't imagine how they filmed some of the things, because it's not like they had CG back then. They just literally had to do these stunts.
Almost all of it was real.
Yeah.
So another fun thing is that this film was one of his most complicated when it comes to optical trickery. So it's funny you bring up CG. They didn't have any, but there are some optical tricks. And here's a little quote. So the film's most famous trick shot involves Keaton jumping into a small suitcase and disappearing. Keaton later said that it was an old vaudeville trick that his father had invented, and he later performed it on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1957, but never publicly revealed how he did it. But here's an explanation of how it's done. The trick was accomplished with a trapdoor behind the suitcase and an actor lying horizontally with long clothes hiding his absent bottom torso, which then allowed the actor to smoothly fall forward and walk as though he had always been standing vertically. Keaton later said that they spent an awful lot of time getting those scenes. Filming took 4 months, while typically it took Keaton 2 months to finish a feature film. The editing was also difficult and took longer than a typical Keaton film, which is probably to do with you mentioning like how it was probably an hour and a half and then he trimmed it to 44 minutes.
Yeah, I think they cut a lot of stuff out. Also, another similarity, they used disguises to escape.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They use a disguise to escape. So in Sherlock Jr., his assistant Gillette does that like trick where he basically stands against the wall and then Buster Keaton jumps through him, which is like really cool to see if you have no idea how it's done.
It's amazing, and Buster Keaton told an interviewer that every cameraman in the business went to see the picture more than once trying to figure out how he did that.
Yeah.
Which is like hilarious. Yeah, just like other filmmakers are like, ooh, shit. And I would say the opposite is true of Sex and the City, in that no one went to this film and thought to, no. You know what? Here's another similarity. I just thought of this. Both films, the audience was sitting there and asking themselves, how did this get made?
Yeah, exactly.
But one was because of technical achievement, and the other one was because, how the hell did this get made? This is the worst fucking movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. But they wear disguises in Sex and the City too, in a particularly disturbing, I would say, maybe, scene. After they encounter these women who, the whole film, they're kind of opining about how these women are oppressed.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of just like rich white New Yorkers. And then they encounter them like in like a little room somewhere, and all these women take off their niqabs, and they're all wearing like super fancy clothing from big designers.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever Chanel, I don't know, whatever the designers are. And then
Yeah, I don't know.
the four women are like, wow, they're just like us. They like super prohibitively expensive clothing. And then they're trying to escape for some reason. I can't remember why. Maybe people are mad at them because
No, because
Samantha had condoms in her bag.
Yeah, she had condoms and her legs were like showing.
Oh, right.
And then she like egged them on by screaming at them, "These are condoms. These are condoms." So
yeah, definitely that's like a moment of insanity.
Yes. Also, the scene on the beach when the guy gets the erection and then he like undoes her like top or whatever while they're eating food, and then everyone's watching them. I was like, this is a wild scene.
Well, yeah, I think it's like, wow, aren't these characters progressive because they're in this like
because they want to fuck in public?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like you wouldn't do that even in New York. I don't understand why you think you can get away with it here, where people definitely don't want you to do that. Like, why do you think you can get away with that here when you couldn't even get away with that in New York?
Yeah, and it's just like funny because it's like as somebody who's been to the UAE and had sex in the UAE, it's not that hard. It's called a hotel room. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's like they're at his hotel or hers, and it's like, let's just go upstairs and bang. But instead, she's like, we got to do it on the beach in front of all these people.
Yeah, it almost seemed like they were trying to like make people mad.
That's it, 100%. It's like that kink where like you want to get caught, you know? And I think that's what they were kind of exhibiting.
Yeah, it makes me kind of go back to my theory about this being like a piece of satire. Just that we know that these characters are morons, right?
Yes.
Or at least that Samantha is, because she's like really pushing the boundaries. It's like, this is what you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a cautionary tale. But anyway, the women escape by taking the niqabs from the other women. And so the four white characters wear these to like basically just escape. And
to the airport.
To the airport, all because then they have to get to the airport fast so they don't have to fly in coach.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. It's such an upsetting film.
Yeah, there's like so many things where, it's wild.
I flew coach from Hanoi to Turkey to the United Arab Emirates. And it wasn't that bad. Coach ain't that bad.
No, probably not.
Because, you just want to get there. The flight is unpleasant no matter what.
Yeah.
There's a lineup for the bathroom. You got a baby crying. Even in like first class, there's crying babies. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Babies is everywhere.
Crazy. Yeah. The babies have rich parents too, people.
Yeah.
This film exhibits that.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyways, whatever. I got two more little tidbits about this film. About my movie. But I just want to say, I guess, because the thing I'm about to talk about, I already kind of said this, but another similarity is both films show a character watching a black and white movie on a screen. But so there's this sequence when he goes into the movie and then he gets kicked out a few times, but then he sticks. And then there's that like sequence of cuts where the location keeps changing.
Yeah.
So how they did that was he and a cinematographer used surveyor's equipment to plot out exactly like identical frames and his proximity to the frame. And that's like how they did it. And then they just had to film it like over several weeks. It was a real pain in the butt logistically.
Yeah.
But it's quite an amazing sequence.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive.
And I would say like he ends up in exotic locations, and so do the four ladies from Sex and the City too. So that's another similarity right there.
Yeah.
The means of travel is different. It's travel nonetheless. You know what I mean?
Very good.
So one last thing is, he made the film. It was much longer. There were no like real laughs. Like it wasn't that funny. So he started trimming it down. And then, he cut it to 45 minutes. It's a 5-reel film. And then his producer wanted him to put in another 1,000 feet of film, which is 11 minutes. And he refused. And then he retitled it Sherlock Jr. And then it made $448,000, which is not a ton of money for the amount that it was made for. And frankly, it was a bad film when it was released. The reviews were quite bad. And he felt underwhelmed by it. So it's not his proudest achievement. And it's one of his weaker films in its initial release, but it's one of the ones that's held up the best.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is interesting.
I have a Buster Keaton box set.
Oh, you do? Of course you do.
I have
From
a
Criterion?
No, it's Kino Lorber.
Mm-hmm.
But I have like a box set of DVDs, not Blu-rays, but DVDs that I got maybe my first year of film school. I asked for it as a Christmas gift, a Buster Keaton box set.
You're such a cinephile.
I truly am. But yeah, I've seen most of his movies. And yeah, Sherlock Jr. is among the best, if not the best. I would also say Seven Chances is really good.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
That is basically it's kind of like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers kind of idea.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, he just has a bunch of women who are in love with him.
Nice.
And there's some crazy stunts in it.
Oh, I believe it. Well, like in The General is probably his most famous film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, The General, right. Yeah, General is also very famous, but I don't really care for it.
Oh, really?
I mean, no, it's still good. I like it a lot, but I just, in terms of Buster Keaton movies, it's like, it's just kind of long and boring. It's too much of a real movie. I guess the thing is, you're really spoiled by movies like Sherlock Jr. because the stunts are so cool.
Yes.
And The General has some amazing stunts, especially like when
with
the train
moving
crashes.
Train.
Yeah, the moving train crashes, the part where he hits the log with the other log while he's on the front of the train, like right on the cow grid thingy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like such an amazing sequence. But yeah, it falling on the bridge that's on fire was nuts.
Yeah.
Similarly, I'd say, this is a weak one, but I'm going to say it anyways. Buster Keaton sent a train onto a burning bridge. And in a way, the director of Sex and the City 2 dragged these ladies onto a proverbial burning bridge and murdered them all.
I had a similar similarity in that both feature sinking. Like the car at the end of the movie drives the car into the lake, and then the car starts sinking. And I would say the Sex and the City franchise also was sinking in the end of this film.
Yes. But another similarity, both films were poorly received by the critics.
Yep. And both are better without sound, dare I say?
You could say they're both silent films because none of the dialogue matters in Sex and the City.
Well, in Sherlock Jr. has a lot of vaudevillian theatrics, like Buster Keaton is a vaudeville guy.
Yeah.
And I would say the comedy in Sex and the City 2 is like borderline vaudeville, just because there's no character jokes.
It's antiquated.
Yeah. There's no like character jokes based out of the characters. It's all just weird kind of like hammy puns.
Mm-hmm.
And even like Kim Cattral's character, I don't remember if she talked like this on the show, but in this movie, she kind of talks like a weird old timey like person, like a 1940s actor. Like she has that, what's the Midwestern accent? What's that accent called for movies? Mid-Atlantic? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, sure. I always thought you call it Midwestern.
Well, just that kind of old timey accent that characters have in American films. See?
You see? Yeah. For sure.
Samantha talks like that in this film, and it's like, why?
I know, it's so odd, isn't it?
1 week in Abu Dhabi, all expenses paid.
I've always been fascinated by the Middle East. Desert moons, Scheherazade, magic carpets.
Like Jasmine and Aladdin?
Yes, sweetie, just like Jasmine, but with cocktails.
It really is exciting. When are you going to go?
I don't know. When can you all be free? You didn't think I was going without my gals. All expenses paid for everything for all four of us. All we have to do is pick the week, and the sooner the better.
Let me just check my work schedule. Yeah? All clear.
Well, I gotta check with the old ball and chain, but I'm good to go. Middle East me.
Charlotte, how's 3 weeks from now?
Oh, I don't know.
I go to children's birthday parties for you. You are going to Abu Dhabi for me.
There's so much about this film to love.
Yeah, but going back to the thing I said about how it was like it would be better without sound.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to point out a scene in Sex and the City 2, which I thought was wild. Okay, you know the part where she fillets a hookah?
Yes.
Yeah, Samantha goes to that bar with that guy that she wants to hook up with, and they're smoking a hookah, and she's filleting it, and everybody's like, "What is wrong with this woman?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
But when she's filleting it, but then when she sucks on it, it makes that kind of like fart sound. So that whole scene is unsettling just for a variety of reasons. Like she's offending all of these people. She's like filleting this hookah, which is kind of just like gross in theory. It's like not even sexy. And then
it's sanitary.
Making a fart sound the entire time.
I know that the hookah sound is not like, doesn't get you in the mood.
No.
You know what I mean? That's kind of why I was like, I could really see these ladies vaping in the third film, because it's just like everyone who's like affluent like that, I feel like has a little vape pen in their bag.
Yeah.
And they're just always sneaking little nicotine hits that taste like sour gummies. That scene is crazy. The whole scene. I don't love it, but it's just funny. The scene ends like on the guy's bulging dick in his loose ass pants.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're walking, but he like touches his dick in front of all these people.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, insane.
And also the way he rides that Jeep over the dune is so unsafe and would hurt your back. If you got air like that and then landed, you would hit your back and probably... Oh, you know what? Another similarity. He probably broke his back on that Jeep, and Buster Keaton broke his back.
Yeah, that's true.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
An interesting similarity I found...
Yes.
Was in the Buster Keaton film. The movie within a movie is called Hearts and Pearls.
Mm-hmm.
And that is kind of like the theme of Sex and the City, the show.
It's true.
Because
it's true. Hearts and pearls.
They want hearts, they want to get with guys. They want to like find romance. And then pearls, they're constantly talking about jewelry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even in this movie, case in point, Carrie gets a state-of-the-art widescreen television or flat screen television for like their anniversary gift.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, why didn't you just get me some jewelry? As if she doesn't have enough.
Yes. And then she gets a ring at the end as her quote-unquote punishment.
Yeah.
I love the whole time. They're just like, God, Carrie, you're so unconventional.
Yeah.
And she isn't.
No, of course not.
And they just keep saying she's so unconventional. And then they're like, you don't even have a wedding ring. You just have your engagement band or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's right, because I'm unconventional. And then at the end, she gets the ring, and it's like, so the theme is you should be conventional or what? Like, what's going on here?
Well, she's
thematically.
She's unconventional to basic people. Like, people are like, wow, she's such a free spirit. But also, I think she's just like that type of person who is kind of like hard to nail down. She doesn't want to hang out and just have a domestic life. She wants to go partying all the time. So I think that she's kind of a bit of a wild card, maybe a bit of like a drunk. Maybe she's an alcoholic. There's probably like a lot of dark stuff to her that they don't really explore because it's like, oh, look, dresses. But
yeah.
It seems like they kind of hint at it in this movie. And those are the best parts of the film where there's this
darker underbelly
of her character where you're kind of, she has to confront who she is known as being and who she knows herself as, this kind of person who likes to be a socialite. Mm-hmm. And that's put to the test because of the institution of marriage.
Wow. I'm snapping to that. Beautiful.
But also in Sherlock Jr., the institution of marriage is put to the test as well.
Ain't that the truth? I guess both films, another similarity is that love or sexual attraction seems to be the sort of inciting incident that causes bad things to happen. Because like Buster Keaton wants to get with his gal, but the other guy also wants to get with the gal, but he's a little more criminal and he can get that money.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're competing for women in the same way that Big and that other guy are competing for Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah. There's a scene in Sherlock Jr. where he puts a ring on her finger.
Oh my God. And Liza Minnelli.
Oh yeah, right. Put a ring on.
You should have put a ring on. Oh my God. That's another similarity.
Like,
I forgot. Also,
around the
tons
same
of
time
cameos.
in the running time.
Yes. Early in the film.
Yeah, early in the film.
In the first like fifth.
But that's a good gag in Sherlock Jr. where he puts the ring on her finger and then he has to hand her his magnifying glass so she can see it.
Yeah, that was funny. I thought that was clever.
Because he's Sherlock.
Exactly.
That's
great.
But
he's
character-based comedy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I guess both films, the main character identifies with a book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. There's a guidebook.
Sherlock has How to Be a Detective book, and Carrie Bradshaw's an author. She writes words, and her career is built on writing novels.
I was going to say that Miranda constantly is carrying a guidebook about Abu Dhabi, and so she's like the little encyclopedia for all of the women who just like don't have the time to learn anything about another culture, so they just ask their lawyer friend who has no storyline in the film. So she's just there to kind of basically be like, in the Zelda games, she's just like the assistant character who just says, "Hey, listen."
Yes.
Yeah.
But you know what? You know who else is obsessed with a book? Is Kim Cattral's character, Samantha Jones, because of that. It's like a dieting, like,
oh yeah, the
vitamins.
Suzanne Summers book.
Yeah. So they're I don't think Kristen Davis's character has a book, but she's reading the writing on the wall that her husband might be boinking the nanny. So boom. That's how we do it. They're all obsessed with the written word and books.
I'd also say narration-wise, the film has similar stylistic elements given the time that it came out in, I guess. So in Sherlock Jr., there's like the standard silent movie narration cards that kind of pop up every once in a while. And often they throw in a gag or two in there, but they're not 100% necessary. Like the movie's done well enough that you could just figure it out without these narration cards.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, in Sex and the City 2, Carrie still narrates the movie, but so sporadically that you kind of forget that that's like a stylistic piece of Sex and the City.
Yeah.
And she just kind of says redundant stuff. Like she never said anything that you need to hear her say.
Well, and in the TV show, her narration is the article being read out.
Exactly.
But in the movie, there is no article or book even that she's in the middle of writing.
Well, she was in the middle of writing an article. Remember, she had to go to that apartment for 2 days.
Into her apartment. Yeah, but that's not like that article. I don't think is what the film ends up being about, because she doesn't write in Abu Dhabi.
It is strange that a character who's a writer and then narrates her writing, they don't give her a writing project to narrate so that the movie makes some sort of stylistic sense within that like framework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wild choice.
Makes you wonder. Those are all the similarities I have.
Oh, okay, good.
Do you have a couple more? Are you cranking out?
I can do a quick lightning round.
Hit me with it, man. Hit me with it.
Both films start on a busy street in a metropolis.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
You see like a little flashback of the Sex and the City characters where they're like, how did we all meet? And apparently they just kind of ran into each other on a street, I guess.
In the 80s.
In the 80s, and they all just had bad haircuts, and that was the bit. And in Sherlock Jr., he's sweeping the street outside of the movie theater he works at. And people keep asking him for $1.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives them all of his money. Both have connections to the Jazz Age. So in Sherlock Jr., literally was made during the Jazz Age, the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Sex and the City 2, Kim Cattral. Have you ever seen that video of her scatting jazz with her husband?
No.
Oh, you got to watch it.
Oh, it's on YouTube?
Yeah, just look it up now.
Oh, wow.
I'll wait.
Oh, good.
So we get your reaction. It's like a minute long. But so she famously, at least according to this video, her husband plays stand-up bass, and then she just scats these terrible poems.
Oh, here we go. I'm about to start it.
And I'll include a clip also.
Good.
I read poetry and sonnets, and he plays the upright bass.
Yamakipiebo, sedere facebo, in dog Latin me quoth, UJ, Sophis, hooray! Well, he bit all the he-dogs and winked at all the she-dogs. The town never knew such a hullabaloo as that little dog raised till the end of that day.
We just have a good rhythm together, you know. He sort of feels me out, I feel him out, and we go for it.
Oh, oh, wow, Mike. Oh, we have a good rhythm. We just kind of feel each other out. But he's like playing the bass and losing the beat, and then like falling off of it, and then she like just stops scatting. Oh, wow, that's really unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Holy moly, that's great. What a fun And they're genuinely into it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
scatting is like a bit we do
Yeah.
as improvisers, but to genuinely scat, I've been to one jazz show, Mike,
Yeah.
and there was like this lady's like singing jazz songs or whatever. She's like, I have a couple students that are going to come up and they're going to scat. And I was like, oh, sweet Jesus Christ. And every single one of them was like in their 50s, and they were like finding their true self later in life, and scatting was part of that journey.
As it is.
But me, oh my, was that an unpleasant evening?
What is it about scatting and being in your 50s, like being middle-aged, that, like, what's the connection there?
It's freedom. It's like a freedom of speech. It's like, I don't even have to say words. I just have to make mouth sounds. It's like going back to your infancy before you could speak, but you could breathe and make sounds. You know, I think it's hearkening to that.
So it's like basically
it puts you in touch with your youth.
It's a way to dip your toe into being an adult baby.
Exactly. God almighty. I love her husband's just such a like normal looking dude too, who just plays the stand-up bass.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's her ex-husband now. They're divorced.
Oh, really? Oh, the scatting.
Yeah. Couldn't keep them together.
I think you'd think it would be the glue, but it wasn't.
I think it's because she found out that he was looking at all the she-dogs.
Oh, shit. That's funny. Oh, God almighty.
Yeah, hell. Yeah, that is hell, but I love that video so much.
It's so funny. It's only 43 seconds. And like the interviewer is interviewing her, and then the B-roll is of them scatting. So somebody was in their house with a VHS camera filming them scatting.
And they were proud of it.
They were super proud of it. Also, she had a book in front of her with obviously words written down, but she didn't even look at it. She was making it up, winging it.
That's a real poem. That's a real poem.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's called The Little Dog Laughed or something like that. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, The Little Dog's Day. That's what it is.
So those are real words she was saying.
Yeah, I think some of it's Latin.
Oh.
In fact, you know what? Yeah. Why don't you play some stand-up bass for me, and I'll give it a little reading. So his prayer he got granted to do just what he wanted, prevented by none for the space of one day. Jammy Cipieto, sedere facebo, in dog Latin he quoth, UJ sophus hooray! He fought with all the he-dogs and winked at all the she-dogs, a thing that had never been heard of before. For the stigma of gluttony, I care not a button. He cried and ate all he could swallow, and more. They thought 'twas the devil was holding a revel, and sent for the person to drive him away, for the town never knew such a hullabaloo as the little dog raised till the end of the day. There you go.
Wow.
That's not the whole thing. I just read the parts that she read.
Which part? She does the back half or what?
No,
she took away.
They edited it so she only does the part where he says, "Uge sophas hooray, dog Latin," he quoth.
Oh, Jesus.
And then later where it says, they thought it was the devil holding a revel. This dog really had a day. It's like Cats.
I don't, well, Cats, famously based off of a poem.
That's what I'm saying. The Little Dog's Day is like Cats, because it's just a poem about a dog having like a very dog-based day.
That's right. I love he fought with the he-dogs and winked at the she-dogs.
Yeah. I can see people who like are into playing terrible jazz, like loving a line like that.
Well, like, because, you know, you can call people dogs. It's fun. It's just a fun. Yeah. It's there's layers, I'd say.
Boom, 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 boom.
All his lives, he'd been good as far as he could. And the poor little beast had done all that he should, but this morning he swore by Odin and Thor and the canine Valhalla, he'd stand it no more. So his prayer he got granted to do just what he wanted, prevented by none for the space of one day. Jam inspiedo seder facebo, in dog Latin he quoth, Yug, Sophos, hooray. He fought with the he-dogs, and he winked at the she-dogs, a thing that he never had heard of before. For the stigma of gluttony, I care not a button. He cried and ate all he could swallow, and more.
Nice.
That's a long poem, buddy. That's like 20% of it. Jeez. Snaps. Silent snaps. I hate poetry. I'm just going to say that right now. I had a Pablo Neruda phase, but that went by pretty quick.
Right.
I was like, oh, yeah, I could get into poetry. And then I realized that it's stupid.
So you don't like poetry. You don't like I assume you don't like scat jazz.
I hate scat jazz.
And you don't like clown. So basically with the three like vital arts you don't like.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ugh, it's all hell to me. It all makes me nauseous. I had I will say this, a listener approached me and said about the whole phrase of play. I totally agree. It weirds me out too.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm not alone. There's canines out there that I am resonating with. Do you ever, you're famously roommates with two cats. Famously. Yeah. It's well documented. You're not a canine. You're a cat guy, but your fans are canines.
Yeah, I'm a cat nine.
Yeah, you're a cat nine. But do you ever look at one of your cats and go, scat, cat?
I do,
and then start mouth basing with your mouth?
Yeah. Boom, 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 boom. It's like,
and then the cat just goes
because she wants to go outside. Yeah. Hell.
It's just such a horrific sound. Just like a shrill cat meow that's not short and cute, but long and drawn out.
Every morning she comes into my room and just screams at me so that I will take her outside. But then I'm like, no, I'm still sleeping. So she just is like, fine. And then she just sits on the bed beside me until I wake up.
And
then I don't
like
take her
dog.
outside. Yeah.
Oh, wow. You're cold-blooded, mister.
Well, usually it's too cold.
Right. I guess it's winter for the majority of the year.
Yeah. And it even was winter up until just last week. So
until like 2 days ago.
Anyway, any final thoughts on these two films?
Yeah, I'd say they're both seminal representations of their time. How about you? Any closing remarks, Mike?
No. I mean, I'm of the I still kind of hold firm on the fan theory.
It's satire.
That it's like that there's something going on there, but I think it's unintentional satire. The more I think about it, I'm not gonna like force something. I'm not gonna force this conspiracy theory.
Well, and don't give the film more than it's due, like more credit.
Yeah. I did read an interesting kind of assessment. I think it was in Variety.
Right.
On Sex and the City 2, and they talked about how, or the TV show balanced this, like the TV show really did a good job of balancing this kind of late 90s white woman feminism of sexual liberation.
Mm-hmm.
And playing up camp is the word that they used.
Right. Just
because of every scene there'll be like a needle drop, but like for dresses, So it's like the next scene is like, look at the insane hat Carrie is wearing and this like wild dress she's wearing.
Right.
And that's like part of the charm of the show. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too a little bit. The assessment of this Variety article was that this movie got the balance wrong. It kind of like really leaned way too hard toward camp, and as best exemplified by having Liza Minnelli sing "Single Ladies at a Gay Wedding" right off the top, and have everybody remark about just how gay the wedding is constantly. Like you could
that was
you
a
couldn't
bit
just
much,
normalize that it was like a wedding for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like the film was attempting to be woke, but before people were starting to smarten up.
Yeah.
That's really, really what happened.
Yeah. So basically the assertion was that the film is so bad because it is more camp than anything.
Yeah.
It's a parody of itself.
Right. I think that's good. That's fair.
Yeah. Not my thought, but something that I read that I thought was interesting. Because the I'm a Carrie, I'm a Samantha, I'm a whatever the other ones are named. Like that doesn't really exist in this film. Nobody watches a movie and says I'm a Samantha, like someone who's like screaming about how she has sex in the Middle East. Nobody's like, oh yeah, I aspire to be that person.
Hey, speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Over here, that's what Bob resonates with. Okay.
But like, imagine this movie never came out. Who are you? Which is your character?
Oh, I feel like Carrie, to be honest with you.
You're a Carrie, okay.
Yeah, but maybe that's just because I'm a narcissist, and she's my favorite character.
I'm probably a Charlotte, if I had to be honest with myself.
Yeah. Look at us. Well, let's wrap this puppy up, huh?
Okay.
The question is, Mike, if you had to make Sex and the City 3,
yes,
where in the world would it take place?
New York.
It's a good answer. All right, nice.
That's where it should
all I
take
needed
place.
from you.
The thing is, they should never leave the city. They should be imprisoned in the state of New York, at least. Like, if they're going to leave New York City, they should at least, go to Albany or whatever.
It would be fun to if it's like Coraline and they leave the city limits of New York, and then a sign says you're now leaving New York, and then they drive for a couple more minutes, and then another sign whizzes by that says you're now entering New York. Yeah, and they just can't leave. They're in this like weird dream loop.
Oh, I love that.
And it's actually like a psychological horror film about how they're trapped in their like affluent, bougie lifestyle and they can't get out.
That's what they need to do.
And the only way to get out is to die.
It's like a horror sci-fi, I guess.
Yeah. We should write some fanfic. We should write a screenplay and try to option it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
To Sarah Jessica Parker.
We should try and like pitch it as a horror film where they're like, they can't leave the city. No matter how many times they leave.
But then it's fun because the fifth character, Lady New York, is the villain. Yeah, they get... And a super toxic friend. You could really explore some interesting themes.
Or that they're the toxic friends and the city is getting revenge just because it's been slighted so much.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's great. I think that's a really good note to end on.
Okay.
Sex and the City should be a horror film.
Yeah, I mean, in a way it kind of is. I did see a piece that somebody wrote about how it's a sci-fi film, Sex and the City 2.
Oh, cool.
They go to this futuristic kind of like city that seems out of this world by like American standards. And the costumes that they wear constantly, like the way that they dress is like from a future era. That's pretty much the whole thing.
That's great. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And there's also a theory that when she buys the shoes, they're like magic shoes.
Ooh, that's kind of juicy.
And it kind of like changes the trajectory of the film. Lots of like fan theories about this film. If only just to justify how misguided it was.
It's funny that human instinct is to defend something even if it's terrible. Yeah. You know? And like fight for it. Like we're fighting for it. We're like, actually it's not that bad because of this blank, whatever, you know, it's like it's actually satire or it's actually, you know, it's a strong film because of this, and this. Yeah, or it's missing one piece and that's why it's good or whatever, you know?
Well, I mean, I watched Ishtar last week and there's a lot of people on Letterboxd who are going to bat for that film.
Really?
It's terrible. But people are going to bat for it because they just discovered Elaine May. Like they watched Mikey and Nikki and A New Leaf and The Heartbreak Kid for the first time and they're like, wow, she is a genius. And like, yeah, she made some good movies, but Ishtar, not good.
Is shit. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. If she's a genius, why did she think this movie was funny? She must be on a whole other level. So a lot of people are just kind of like, I think, brainwashed by this idea that they have a new kind of proto Wes Anderson, you know, director to love. 70s version. Yeah.
The concept of her is all they need to justify something being good or bad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not the work itself. It's just that she exists.
Yeah.
So it's just like blind devotion to her.
Also that Ishtar ruined her career.
Oh, it did, hey?
Yeah, like she didn't direct another film after that.
Wow.
So...
Goes to show, don't make Ishtar.
Well, don't make Ishtar. But also the thing is, I think the point is people rally around her specifically because she made a bunch of really, really good movies. And then she made Ishtar and then was not able to make another movie either because she chose not to, which I'm not sure. I assume it's just because they were just like, you made Ishtar, you're not allowed to make another movie again. But other people make terrible movies all the time and get to make another movie whenever they want.
It's true. It's true.
I mean, yeah. Zack Snyder, for example.
Yeah.
Or Joss Whedon, I guess you could even say. He made Justice League, which is really bad. And then he gets to make everything he wants. So, yeah, I think there's the sexism element too, where people are like railing behind her because she was victimized, and they're not wrong, but also Ishtar sucks.
I think there's more grace given to men who make a terrible film than to female directors that make a terrible film.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm watching Wonder Woman 1984 right now, and I'm like, I'm curious to see what happens to Patty Jenkins' career after this.
Yeah, it's
going to be interesting because, like, yeah, Zack Snyder, totally forgiven. People are blindly devoted, but I bet you her treatment will be much worse.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a reality that directors have to face.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah,
but,
it is.
Don't let that distract you from the fact that Ishtar sucks.
It's terrible.
And we will get to that when we do an Ishtar episode, probably inevitably, but
yeah, well, we're definitely going to do Ishtar sometime.
Yeah.
In the upcoming, maybe next season, season 1.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. That was a fun episode. Lots to talk about. And don't forget to subscribe on social media from Justin to Kane on Twitter, Letterboxd, and Instagram, and Facebook if you want. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes, why don't you, huh?
Yeah, that would be really nice. Thanks.
And Podchaser, go on there too. Yeah, so Bob, thanks for doing this episode. I think we have a real good rhythm together, We just kind of feel each other out and we go for it.
Do 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 boom 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 boom. Bye everyone.
Bye.